Hey everybody, Alton here. Wanted to take the time because I've got something here that I know is hotly anticipated and a lot of people got excited about when they made the announcement not long ago that I just got in the mail today. It was on my front porch, picked it up. The Sound Switch Control 1 controller. I'm going to give you a few of my first impressions on it. I've had a chance to just play with it for a little bit, and I also just installed the firmware update that SoundSwitch put out for it. They must have done it very recently or since it launched. Anyway, we're going to get right into it here. So, first thing I want to say, we're going to talk about the positives. The positives are it's pretty damn cool. The big positive about it is that, of course, it's built for SoundSwitch by SoundSwitch. So everything's labeled out, laid out intuitively. If you've been in the software and you've been using the interface, it looks like it looks in the software. For the most part, the colors match up. These grid buttons, the colors match up with what the labels are for the different auto loops. Of course, if you're using your auto loops and you want to go directly to them, you've got banks 1 through 4, as well as each auto loop below that in each bank. You also have quick access to all these solid colors, so red, orange, yellow, so on and so forth, right? You also have pretty fast access to the movements. You can press this movement shortcut button. Notice it starts blinking to let you know, and up on the screen, it gives you movement speed and size. Now, the text is pretty small, so you got to be close to see it, and then you can use these two little knobs. You can kind of see it. I'll try to get closer to the camera. You can kind of see how the bar graphs fill in and out, and that controls what's on the screen. If you're in the menu on it, so if I go back out of the movement, if you go to the menu by clicking this button and you go through the different menu options, this is your navigation. You have a back button here, and as you go through the different menu options, these two knobs below will control the different things that you're looking into. Of course, you got the play pause button, shift button to control the alternate functions. Again, the fact that this is laid out by SoundSwitch to work for SoundSwitch and it's labeled with everything you'd want to control for SoundSwitch is really, really good. Another good thing, too, is that they did include 2 universes to plug into on the back. They also have 2 USB input ports. There's also a USB through function, which I'm not exactly sure what that does or what it's for. I'll be honest. I don't know everything about these things, but I know enough to be dangerous. Now, if we get to the first things that I think could have been done a little better, I'm going to start with the one thing that's more of a mild thing, and then I'm going to get to the big thing that's just first impressions I know is going to be kind of an issue. But we're going to start with the more mild thing. I'm going to start with the color buttons, okay? Particularly the all white button. I like how they took the all white button, and not only did they, not as only does it have the white outline to show you it's all white, but they have the word white right in the middle of it. And the reason why the all white button is so important on a lighting controller is because white is, of course, it's the brightest color because it uses all the colors. And it's really great to emphasize something in the music when something's playing along. A perfect example is in the Cha-Cha Slide. Every time you hear that hit, that bump, 2 hops this time, bump, bump, right? You can emphasize that with the white. It makes that impact even greater and more exciting for the audience when you use the lighting in such a way to accent the music. Again, very simple example, but something that literally everybody can imagine and picture in their head right away. So that's why I said that one. The thing that I have an issue with this button is, and I've noticed this on other in-music brand products, okay, particularly their brand of DJ controllers, that their hot cue buttons are like this too, where the buttons kind of, for lack of a better word, squidgy. Okay, that's my word for it. It's squidgy. It's not like a nice. It's not like an Akai performance pad where you tap it and it's got a harder feel to it, but by just touching the button, it's gonna do what you want it to do. It's got this initial press in, like you can press and get it to squish a little bit, and then somewhere about halfway down in the travel of the button is actually engaging, and then you can kind of press through that. So to talk about why this kind of is a little bit of a gripe of mine, it's because when you're hitting colors, so let's say that there's some colors like mentioned in a Bruno Mars song or something like that, like red to blue or something like that. For some reason, my mind is blanking on it. But you want to go red to blue right when they say that. You want that red to happen right when the word is said, and that blue to happen right when the word is said. And these buttons are going to give you a little bit of input lag because they don't activate as soon as you press them. You got to press through them, which I find is not as responsive and tactile. The other thing about it, and this is not SoundSwitch's fault, but a lot of us are using wireless DMX, which wireless DMX does have a little bit of a lag to it. I don't care which wireless DMX you're using. They all do. There's always a little bit of lag in that wireless signal being sent. And if your input is at all laggy, it's going to then just add on to that. So these buttons, all these color buttons, if they could have all been something either like an Akai performance pad, similar to what Pioneer DJ uses in their Hotq performance pad buttons. I think those are some of the best buttons that you could have for something like this. Or what I was using before I'm going to use the SoundSwitch, I was using a MIDI Fighter 3D. Shout out to DJ Tech Tools. They make the MIDI Fighter 3D if you want to find one. These MIDI Fighter controllers they make, all their MIDI Fighter controllers are pretty amazing. I love these things because they're extremely durable. The reason why they call them the Fighter is because they have these arcade style buttons. They're actually the same arcade buttons that were used on the Street Fighter video game arcade games, that, the big arcade stand games. And the reason why they're so good is because, number one, they're rated for millions of presses. You can press these buttons millions of times and they're still going to be working. They're very durable, but they're very, very responsive. These are meant for people playing a video game where you've got to make a certain move in the video game in a fraction of a second and have it trigger exactly when it's supposed to happen. So this is the kind of thing that I really like for when you have to do a performance and you want to activate something at the exact right time, so it's hitting right away. It feels like it's organic, like it's part of the beat. It happened on beat, happened on time. There was no delay. So this type of responsive tactile feel, or even, like I said, an Akai performance pad style feel, is what I'd like to see in those color buttons. Now we're going to get to the big thing that I found is possibly going to be a problem, and maybe it's just my unit. I would really love to hear from the few other people who have one of these so far, because they just started shipping out. Not a whole lot of people have them yet, but I'd love to hear in the comments if anybody else has this issue. Now, I installed a firmware update, which seems to just initially has helped with it a little bit, but it's still not right. It's this touch strip that they put in this thing, and it is the touch strip. It's not just software or anything like that. It's the touch strip, and this is what I'm going to show you right now. So watch. You're going to notice that I'll move my finger and the touch strip doesn't always like right there, doesn't always respond to what I'm doing, or it's laggy, or what was happening is that before the firmware update, it was jumping all over the place. Like I'd have my finger down here and you'd see it jump up to all the way full or whatnot. But here I'm swiping, I'm touching from the top down and nothing's happening. I'm going to swipe from the bottom up. No, oh, there finally did go. Now I swiped all the way down. It stayed at halfway. So this touch strip is not responsive like it should be. This is not professional, in my opinion. And if I'm relying on this for professional performance, again, this firmware update I just updated must have addressed something with this, because before, like I said, it was glitching like crazy. And I have a video to show it. Maybe I'll overlay a little bit of that video right here so you can see what I was talking about. So if this is something that can be fixed with software, great. Oh, there you saw it glitch a little bit at the bottom, but not too bad. Again, it was worse. So if you can, and I'm not talking like just where my finger's like halfway in between one or the other and it's kind of going back and forth, that I understand. Okay. I'm talking like my finger would be here and it was spiking up to like way up here. Okay. But again, there's still this lack of response. So SoundSwitch, if you did, or InMusic, if you did go cheap or cheaper than you should have on that piece of equipment right there, I think that's a big party foul, to be honest, because that's a really important thing. One of the big features that SoundSwitch added within the recent amount of time was they added groups, fader groups, where you can group fixtures under 4 different groups, and they actually put that control on here, which I think is brilliant. I love that they added this feature. The fact that I can click here, do group 1 or group 2. If it's flashing, that's group 2, okay? I can do group 3 and group 4. That's all really important, especially when you're trying to create certain scenes or certain static scenes and complement with what you're doing in those scenes. Or, again, there's lots of times at weddings where I'm working and I want to get the lighting just right. I just want to have my uplights on. So I have all my uplights under one group, or I have my moving heads under another group, and I have my wash lights on the dance floor under another group. And I need to turn the wash lights off for some reason, okay? Or I need to turn the wash lights and the moving heads off. This group feature is a huge help for that. And I love SoundSwitch that they added that feature to the software. This fader has one job, though, and it doesn't do it as well as it should, in my opinion, especially when I first had it out of the box. After this firmware update helped it, but the other thing about it I notice about this is that it feels a little bit soft. Like, it's not bad, but when I first was touching it, it's got like a little bit of give to it. Okay, you can't see what I'm doing here, but yeah, it's got a little bit of give to it. Again, that firmware update seems to have helped, which kudos for them getting that out so fast after launch, because I'm sure that they'd probably have a lot more issues with people. But right there, that was kind of a glitchy jump that's still coming through. Or the fact that I'm moving it and it's not going smooth. It was like it just went from 1 to 70 right there. I'm going to watch this off. And here's the other thing too. I can't show you this, but it's actually doing that. I've got the software window up over here. And what you're seeing on this fader here is it's doing with the fader on the screen. Now, contrast that to what I used to use before for my faders. For the knobs, I used the MIDI Fighter Twister, which has all these encoder knobs. They're all digital, so there's no physical limit to the knob. They'll turn infinitely one way or the other. But electronically, they've got their potentiometers in it. And this thing is smooth, worked every time. The input was perfect going into SoundSwitch. And again, you watch the faders here, you turn, the fader movement is smooth and worked perfectly, okay? Now, comparing using these two devices together like I would with the SoundSwitch Control 1, the table real estate is a little bit less than using these two. Not by a whole lot, but enough. And every little bit of table real estate matters, especially if you're like me and you're using turntables and a mixer at events, which take up a lot of space on a table. And you're only using about like a 5 foot by 2 foot table anyway. So one of the reasons I got this was to, number one, have a controller dedicated from SoundSwitch that worked with it, made the workflow easier, better, more intuitive, matching up more with what the software looked like. And then, of course, also I was thinking to myself, well, okay, little less table real estate taken up by something like this that's made for this, great too. The problem, of course, is that if something isn't 100% on it, like this fader is, okay, again, better. This might be a little, well, see, like, I'm going to show you because I want you to see that it's not just it's not just all faders like this, okay? So I have the Pioneer DDJ XP2. It has 16 performance pads on each side, so 32 performance pads. I would say close to the same amount of buttons as the Sound Switch Control 1. It has 2 of these touch strips. Watch this. I've got to move my finger the right way. There we go. Watch this touch strip. No lag. If I can get in the camera. Game of opposites here. No lag whatsoever. I'm going to do it from this side so you can see better. No lag. No problems. I can touch it wherever, and it's right on with me. Works every time I touch it. The input on it is crazy accurate and good. And when I watch this in the software to respond to what I'm doing, it's right in sync with it. And it's not like I have a slow machine either. This is a maxed out 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro that this is all connected to. So it has the fastest i9 processor, 64 gigs of RAM, everything solid state. So, I mean, it's no slouch. Yes, I know the M1s are faster now, but even still, it's nothing to sneeze at. So, like I said, this works perfectly and stays right with my finger every time, whereas the Sound Switch one, not so much. So I'm really disappointed in that. I mean, like, a lot. Just because having good faders is really important when you're doing a performance and you need something to work properly. Okay. Having said all that, what do I think about this overall? Should you get it? If you're thinking to yourself, I have it unplugged now. If you're thinking to yourself that I want something that's made for Sound Switch, that's got the labels, and I don't have any other MIDI controls right now to do it, then yeah, get it. The other cool thing that I think I mentioned briefly, but if I didn't, I'm going to say it again, is the 2 Universe outputs. It does have 2 Universe outputs, which gives you 1,024 channels of DMX. Now, if you were to ask me if there was a choice at this price point, because this thing is $300, between having 2 DMX universes and having the better input controls like I've mentioned in here, both with the touch pads for the colors and also having a touch strip that's rock solid, unlike this one, I would have picked the better input controls over having 2 universes. That's me. Not sure how that works out, and I think, again, having 2 universes is really nice. The only time I've come close to using 2 universes as a professional mobile DJ is with lights where I'm using per pixel light shading. So the fixtures that I have that would actually require that many channels would be like the Blizzard Pixelicious, which has up to 480 channels per light, because they've got, I think, 40 by 4. So it's 40 by 4 by 3. Yeah, that sounds right. So it's 40 pixels by 4 rows of 40 pixels. And then each pixel has red, green, and blue. So 480 channels, which only leaves you 32 channels per universe left for anything else. So if I wanted to have 2 fully mapped Pixelicious bars to do some crazy, on display or on light effects, like when you're looking at the light and you see the eye candy effect of it, then yeah, that would be cool and all. I found that, well, I won't get into all that. Just suffice to say that was the only time I'd even think about going into more than one universe, is if I wanted to do something like that. And again, I would have found that it would have been better to have a better touch strip, a higher quality touch strip, and the buttons and the more responsive buttons for certain functions. So that's all I have to say about that. For $300, it's not bad. Keep in mind, This is about $300 as well. And I'm not saying that you should get this over this, because this actually works right with SoundSwitch. And to my knowledge, what's cool, especially if you're a legacy user, is that has the SoundSwitch box. You don't need your SoundSwitch box anymore with this. You can just use this. So you can take the box out of the signal chain. So it replaces that in a sense, which is nice, and then adds the extra control, which is nice. So value-wise, yeah, it's good. It's good. They just need to improve those couple things. So thanks so much. Hope this was helpful. I'm sorry it was a long video, but again, if you found value out of seeing this, let me know. Also, let me know in the comments if you have any of these issues with the touch strip on this device, if it's just mine and I should contact SoundSwitch and Music Brand to see about getting a replacement done for mine right away. Thanks so much. Bye.